Welcome. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together in community, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship with each other, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Let us be willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and opening to connection in all of its forms. And now, let us join together in lighting the candles of community. You can light a candle for a joy or a concern or just to bring more light into this space together.
I was given the task of a short talk on stewardship. I was going to tell the story of the widow's two mites, but I bet you've already heard it. In any case, I'm not here to ask you to give your last 2 pennies. I'm sure you've all heard the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who promised to sell their property and give all the proceeds to the church. But they kept some of the money for themselves and lied about it. But I'm not here to ask you to sell all your property and give it to the church either. And nobody is going to be struck dead. I could tell all of you of the good that your pledge will do for this church, but I'm sure you all know that. We haven't quite reached megachurch status yet. I want to call your attention to the benefit it will be to you. Humans are made to enjoy giving. It is part of our nature to get enjoyment out of giving gifts to those we love. Otherwise, Christmas wouldn't be the biggest holiday of the year. I have my donation taken out automatically every month from my bank because I know I'm very forgetful, and that's not getting any better as I get older. After a struggle to navigate the bank website, I finally found the bill pay page and set up the withdrawal. So I encourage you, even urge you, to make yourself happier and maybe even more joyful by making a pledge today to keep this church on the black side of the budget. Do it for yourself. Bring more happiness and joy into your own life. Please pledge today. Thank you.
And now let us stand in body or spirit for the lighting of the chalice and our spoken affirmation. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are a part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. Let us join together in the spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. You may be seated. Our opening thought comes from Hannah Gadsby from Nanette. To be rendered powerless does not destroy your humanity. Your resilience is your humanity. The only people who lose their humanity are those who believe they have the right to render another human being powerless. They are the weak. To yield and not break, that is incredible strength.
We're doing sound and mic checks now at the theater. Are we still on for dinner tonight for our annual Monday night because it's my only night off dinner?
Well, let's do a potluck because I'm not cooking for everybody.
Okay, I'm so excited. This is going to be a great new tradition. I'm going to go and get pies now for everyone. Taxi! Taxi! Hey!
God, I love her style.
God, I need a break.
People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. We're children needing other children. And yet letting a grown-up pride hide all the need inside, acting more like children and children. Lovers are very special people. They're the luckiest people in the world. With one person, one very special person, a feeling deep in your soul says you were half, now you're whole. No more hunger and thirst, but first be a person who needs people. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world.
Our next reading comes from Eric Pevernaggi, A Handful of Dust. We are what we are, a handful of dust, and although life remains a temporal enterprise, we recognize we have a mission. Through resilience and empathy, we can take a walk on the path of thought and wonder and brighten up the hazy remains of the day. Let's join together for a time of meditation. I'll be reading from Jennifer Kwong, From Ally to Advocate. Thought I was so smart till I didn't know the answer to why evil exists in the world. Thought I was so enlightened till I discovered comfort in darkness for a while. Thought I was so liberal till my good intentions produced the opposite results. Thought I was colorblind till my eyes began to see differences that should be honored. Thought I was an ally when what was called for was an advocate instead. Our second reading is from Martin Luther King Jr. from his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, and that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. Structures of evil do not crumble by passive waiting. If history teaches us anything, it is that evil is recalcitrant and determined, and never voluntarily relinquishes its hold short of an almost fanatical resistance. Evil must be attacked by a counteracting persistence, by the day-to-day assault of the battering rams of justice. I hate to begin my discourse this morning on a negative note, but I think most of us could agree that the 21st century has been a disappointing century in many ways, especially for those of us who had hoped for a more just, peaceful, participatory, and sustainable world. In short, the 21st century has sucked. The prior century, the 20th century, was also one of the most disappointing and most evil centuries in human history. with 2 world wars killing tens of millions of persons, some of the worst race massacres and genocides ever perpetrated, and World War II ending with the use of 2 atomic bombs killing tens of thousands of civilians. The second half of the 20th century brought with it a Cold War and the real and ever-present fear of a very possible nuclear war that would have ended human civilization as we know it. Many of us remember the days where we would seek shelter during the drills in high school. And though we avoided nuclear war, the numerous proxy wars during the Cold War led to the death and suffering of millions more around the world. The 20th century was also a century of massive population growth and increased consumption, leading us to the first point in human history where human consumption surpassed the planet's carrying capacity, as year after year we ate into and continue to eat into the corpus of the Earth's ecological endowment, the interest of which has sustained us for centuries. By the end of the 20th century, we learned that our addiction to fossil fuels was threatening the continuation of a livable climate for human life and much of the rest of life on Earth. One could lament the evils of many other past centuries that also experienced negative things. We could lament the imperial conquests and the oppression that came with them, slavery, colonialism, religious wars, religious persecution, and the displacement and genocide of indigenous peoples. Human history is full of chaos, destruction, violence, and death. But in the latter part of the 20th century, signs of hope were emerging. In the United States, civil rights legislation passed. The Voting Rights Act passed. In South Africa, apartheid came to an end. In the latter part of the 20th century, the Cold War came to an end, or at least so we thought. And it seemed that mutually assured destruction might be replaced with the possibility of mutual cooperation. Walls that were built to divide us were literally being torn down. I have a small bottle of parts of the Berlin Wall at home. Democracies were on the rise, and authoritarian and totalitarian regimes were weakening. Advances were being made for rights of women and for persons who are LGBTQIA+. In response to the ecological devastation here in the United States, we saw environmental laws like the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Endangered Species Acts passed along with the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. We witnessed global cooperation to address the thinning of the ozone layer in our atmosphere. Bipartisan, nonpartisan global cooperation to deal with that threat. And at the very end of the 20th century, we saw the beginning of global agreements and cooperative efforts to address the urgent challenge of climate change. Looking back at 1999, one might understand why so many thought that the future looked bright, if they could just get past that Y2K thing. Many still saw the 21st century as being a century that was going to be challenging and difficult. Many still saw the 21st century as a make or break century for the survival of humanity. But at the beginning of the 21st century, there was substantial hope that we might just make it rather than break it. Then on September 11th, 2001, it seemed like hope collapsed and was buried deep in the rubble of the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. The fight against global terrorism became the new priority for the new century. New divisions were created and old divisions were made more pronounced along religious, cultural, and racial lines. The fight against terrorism was used to justify an unjust war in Iraq that killed hundreds of thousands of persons and led to the longest war in US history in Afghanistan. Globally, democracies, including our own, weakened, while autocracies have been strengthened. Genocides, war, and violence persist, and the once very real hope of Russian and American cooperation in the world seems a long, distant memory that has thoroughly faded away. The threat of the use of nuclear weapons is likely greater today than it has been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. In the name of independence, in the name of energy independence, the United States' addiction to fossil fuel has continued, and the work to address climate change has been replaced with Sarah Palin's drill, baby, drill, and Obama's reminder that, quote, "We are drilling for oil and gas all over the place," end quote. In the midst of the United States joining climate change agreements, then leaving them, then joining them again, global greenhouse gases are rising as steadily and as quickly as our global average temperatures. Short-term economic gain continues to trump long-term ecological sustainability. One might look at how poorly the 21st century has begun and be tempted to throw in the towel. It might be tempting to give up on building community in these chaotic times such as these. But that is precisely when we need community the most. And building community is one of the most important ways to move through and beyond the chaos and to move towards a better future. It is precisely for such a time as this that we need to double, triple, and infinity down on our efforts to build beloved community in the world. Human history has been a constant battle between chaos and community, and although chaos often seems to have the upper hand, imagine how much worse things could have been and would be now if everyone had simply given up on the work for beloved community. Imagine slavery with no abolition or emancipation movement. Imagine a world of Hitlers with no Bonhoeffers. Imagine systemic racism with no civil rights movement. Imagine ecological devastation with no environmental movement. Imagine apartheid without the resistance of Mandela, Tutu, and Biko. Imagine the Taliban without the resistance of people like Malala. Imagine social injustice without the tireless work of persons like Dorothy Day. It has always been the work of persons and communities working for love, justice, and peace who have kept the world from devolving into total chaos and who have made the world today much better than it would have been otherwise. Today, we are called to face the chaos that we're currently experiencing with the same courage, the same resilience, to make today and tomorrow much better than it would have been without our work for beloved community in this world. It is for such a chaotic time as this that we are called to be builders of resilient, beloved community as we work to literally save the world from the forces of chaos that we must face together. May we have the courage, the wisdom, and the love to find our way to the beloved community that continues to be the best hope for the world, even in the most chaotic times. At this time, we'll have our time of giving, and those who wish may bring their gifts to the table, or also you may give online.
have a dream of what I wanna be. I wanna be free. That's what my heart keeps telling me. Give me your hand.
We'll find a way.
There's people out there
That feel the same.
if we help each other. I just know we can succeed. We are one, but we are different. We from all around the world. We share the same sun, we share the same oceans. We are every boy and girl. Come together and share our dreams. We'll be amongst the stars, and we know that it's destiny. And we are unity. We are unity.
I do believe. Oh, I believe in destiny. It's up to me to make it into reality.
Give me your hand.
We'll find a way
People out there,
that feel the same.
if we help each other,
I just know we can succeed.
we are one, but we are different. We from all around the world. We share the same sun, we share the same oceans. We are every boy and girl. Come together and share our dreams. We'll be amongst the stars, and we know that it's destiny. That we are unity. No matter where you're from or who you are, if we can find a common place to be, that we are friends. We are one, but we are different. We from all around the world. We share the same sun, we share the same oceans. Oh. We are one, but we are different. We're from all around the world. We share the same sun, we share the same oceans. We are every boy and girl. Come together and share our dreams. We be amongst the stars, and we know that it's destiny. That we are unity. We are unity.
Let us stand in body or spirit for our parting thought and the extinguishing of the chalice. Our parting thought comes from Maya Angelou, and it's her poem, Still I Rise. She writes, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.